My mom asked me this a lot, and it's kind of an intense question. My mom asked me, she's like, when did we stop being best friends? And she's right. We used to be best friends. You remember that when you were a little boy and you loved your mom and you thought she was the cool. You remember when you were gay?
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Pipala show. First, I want to thank Air Shades for hooking me up with 3 pairs of sunglasses. I'm gonna have like an unboxing review at some point out on my Instagram this week. But shout out to them, man. I DM'd them, and they were able to hook me up with a couple pairs of free sunglasses. So shout out to them. I'm rocking one of the pairs they sent me right here. But it's been a pretty good week in the American news cycle. I like to cover pretty much anything on the show, and Shane Gillis, American comedian Shane Gillis, hosted Saturday Night Live. I'll give you a little bit of a backdrop on Shane Gillis. So he's a comedian from Philadelphia, and what is controversial with him is he was hired on SNL in 2019, I believe it was, to be on, the show as a regular cast member, everything like that, rising comedian. And then what happened was they did like a deep dive on him, rightfully so. SNL's a pretty big company, pretty big show, and with NBC behind it and all. And so what they found was allegedly like Asian slurs. And so what happened then was he wasn't even allowed to be on a single episode of SNL. They fired him. And so he was fired before he even was able to be like a actor, I guess you could say, on the show. And fast forward to now, 2024, he hosted the show on February 24th, last Saturday, and mostly positive. I mean, this is a big win for comedy. It's a big win for comedians, especially comedians that rose up kind of like through the internet, which is similar to what Shane did. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to talk about it. I mean, I think he is the new king of comedy. He's only like 34, 35. He might be 36, but relatively young, relatively rookie years in terms of like a comedian. And I'm so excited to, talk about what he's doing next. So real quick, what we're going to do right now is we're going to react to his monologue, kind of a controversial monologue, and you'll see why. If there are slurs, which there are a couple quote-unquote slurs that are in here, we'll bleep it. But yeah, this is so we're going to react to Shane Gillis's stand-up monologue on SNL, and we're just going to, let's turn that down. We're just going to go with it. So here we go. Let's dismiss that. Turn the volume all the way up. All right, give me a second here. Let's record this. Alrighty. Here we go. Alrighty. So we are now recording, and let's react to it. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shane Gillis.
I'm such a fan of Shane.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm here. Most of you probably have no idea who I am. I was fired from this show a while ago, but don't look that up, please. If you don't know who I am, please don't Google that. It's fine. Don't even worry about it. I don't know. I probably shouldn't be up here, honestly. I should be home. I should be a high school football coach. That's what I should be. Like, God molded me perfectly to be a high school football coach / 9th grade sex education teacher. But that is what I want to be. That is, I can feel it. It's in there. It's like my true calling. And you feel, I can feel it. I'm getting older. It's passing me by. Like my biological clock is ticking on this stream. You know how like when a woman's biological clock is ticking, she sees like a baby in a stroller and is like, oh my God, your baby. Like that's how I am if I see like a big 15-year-old. I'm like, oh my God, look at the size of that kid. With the right coaching, that kid could be something special, I'm telling you right now. I come from a long line of coaches in my family. My father is actually a volunteer assistant girls high school basketball coach. He's actually here right now. You get him on there?
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he singled out his dad. His dad's in the crowd. He singled out his dad. That's funny.
There's my dad, the volunteer assistant girls high school basketball coach. I thought it was funny. All right. You don't think that's funny to bring my dad here to make fun of him for being a girls' high school basketball coach? All right. I thought it was great. Never
Pay
mind.
attention to the chick in the back.
That was going to be a big
He's
hit
not
here.
laughing at all, and we'll talk about that later.
Now, my mom's up there with him. My mom, I'm not going to make fun of you. My mom asks me this a lot, and it's kind of an intense question. My mom asked me, she's like, when did we stop being best friends? And she's right. We used to be best friends. You remember that when you were a little boy and you loved your mom and you thought she was the cool. You remember when you were gay? You remember when you were just a gay little boy? Every little boy is just their mom's gay best friend. There's literally zero difference. I was gay from.
Apparently, so he's the first one to say like the word gay, in like the way it used to be used, like gay in terms of like being weird. He's the first one to be like non-politically correct, I guess, in a long time in a SNL stand-up monologue.
My mom, she would pick me up from school. I'd hop in the van. I'd be like, "Girl, tell me about your day." I thought she was cool. I would listen to her music. I'd be like, "Bam, bam, ba-dam, bam, bam, bam. Let's go, girls." I would dance for her.
Same.
Be like, "Look at my little dancer." But my mom asked me when we stopped being best friends, and I don't have the heart to tell her because, like most men, I know exactly when me and my mom stopped being friends. It was the first time I whacked off. All right. Because before that, you're like, "Oh, where's my mom? I love my mom. She's so cool." One nut, you're like, "When's that bitch gonna leave the house?" I have so much business to attend to. All right. I hope I could say those words on TV.
This
anyway,
is great.
my whole family's here, so I'll talk about them instead of anything else. Talk about my family. I'll tell you this. I don't know if you guys, if you can tell by looking at me, but I do have family members with Down syndrome. It almost got me.
He did that in his special.
But it nicked me. It nicked me. It's funny. It's fun.
Bro, nobody else can do this, and maybe he brought SNL back, man. Who knows? But this whole episode, I think, was genuinely funny, and also I think too. Let me give SNL credit. I mean, they've been putting out like funnier episodes of late. I like the one with Timothy Chalamet. I thought that was really cool, really funny. They've been doing better, man, and Pete Davidson too. I thought that was funny.
Look, I don't have any material that can be on TV, all right? I'm trying my best. Also, this place is extremely well lit. I can see everyone not enjoying it. This is, just the most nervous I've ever been. Don't clap now. Shut up. No, I brought up Down syndrome. You can always tell who's never been around Down syndrome when you bring it up. Like, if I tell people, if I'm like, yeah, I have family members with Down syndrome, people that have never been around it are always like, oh... Like it's the end of the world. Like, oh, are they okay? Are they doing it? It's like, they're doing better than everybody I know. They're the only ones having a good time pretty consistently. They're not worried about the election. They're having a good time. My niece has Down syndrome, and I thought that was going to get a bigger laugh. I thought we were allowed to have fun here. But no, my niece has Down syndrome. It's a funny thing that happens when someone in your family has Down syndrome. It goes, my sister was pregnant, everybody was like very, very scared. And then once they come into your life, you realize that's easily the only good member of your entire family. It's crazy. And then your family gets like too proud. Like now, every single day in my family's group text, it's just pictures of my niece. and every day somebody else in my family comments, she looks exactly like Uncle Shane. And I'd be like, yeah, I see it a little. And there's no denying it. She does. She looks like me with bangs. Just happy. Just. But my niece's mother, she didn't know she could get pregnant, so she foster cared and then adopted 3 black kids, and then she finally got pregnant, and now she has a kid with Down syndrome, and her husband is from Egypt. He's an Arab guy. You go over to their house, it's like getting in the craziest Uber pool you've ever been. It's crazy. Like, how did you guys meet? This is... But there's something, I don't know, my niece, one day, I'm not saying it's like something I'm looking forward to, but I think it'll be a nice thing for the whole country. I would say when my niece is probably in like 5th, 6th grade, out at recess, and some white kids out there like, hey, you're not allowed to play with us. You're and then 3 black kids.
Holy crap! I can't believe he said it. We're gonna bleep that out for YouTube. Let's just be clear. But he said, you know, the word, the R word. I can't believe that's got to be the first time in 20, 30 years maybe that was said on SNL. Crazy.
And out of nowhere, just start wailing on that cracker. Everyone's gonna be like, oh! It's like a nice moment. Yeah, you guys said cracker. No, my family and I, we opened a coffee shop in my hometown for people with Down syndrome to work at, and it's going. Don't clap. I didn't do it for the claps. I did it. It's going exactly how you'd think it would go. It's doing well, actually. Line around the corner every day. Not because there's like a ton of people going, but service is. Everyone's getting apple juice. We don't know how to fix that problem. There's one thing you know. There's one thing you notice though when you work with these guys, and it's funny. There's zero difference between us and them, and especially at work, there's no difference. Every day these dudes show up to work just. And you're like, what's your problem, dude? They're like, I hate this job so. All right, hey, we've got a great show for you tonight. 21 Savage is here, so stick around. We'll be right back. Thank you.
That was great, man. That was awesome. So I'm going to be very clear. I enjoyed that a lot. And I know a lot of people around the country enjoyed that too. Not just the monologue, but like the skits and all. I can't show any here. The ones that I want to show. In particular, if you search the Limu Emu sketch, that was really good. There was also a Packers like butt plug sketch that was also really funny. The Trump shoes one wasn't bad, but I feel like it could have been better. Shane Gillis is notorious for his Donald Trump impression. I think he does the best Trump impression out of all the other comedians and just impressionists out there. And he kind of did it. He kind of dressed up like Trump, but not in the way that I would have liked. He has a notorious skit on YouTube called Trump Speed Dating, because he has like a sketch show, right? And so he does a bunch of sketches, kind of like Key and Peele. Although I would argue some of them are funnier. But this one, Trump Speed Dating, I highly encourage you to go check that out if you haven't already. But I don't know, man. Shane Gillis, he has risen to prominence. He was on, but after he got fired from SNL, he was on a couple of podcasts after, and then finally he was on the Joe Rogan Experience. And notoriously, that episode bombed. Completely bombed. For whatever reason, man, I don't know. He was awkward, but now as he's starting to become more familiar with people like Joe, I know every month he's on this podcast with Joe Rogan, Ari Shaffir, and Mark Norman called Protect Our Parks. And so they have the first one. They basically just get hammered and Shane drinks like 20 Bud Lights every episode. And so it's kind of like a party episode. Sometimes they go for like 5 hours. And so Shane had his first special. He put it out on YouTube, Live from Austin. I think that's what it was called. And it was good. Don't get me wrong. And then last year, Shane had a second Netflix special, but it was a second special, I should say. But it was on Netflix called Beautiful Dogs. And in my opinion, if you haven't checked out Beautiful Dogs is probably my favorite. It's my favorite stand-up special that I've seen in a long time. I'm a fan of Dave Chappelle. I'm a fan of Joe Rogan. I'm a fan of people like Tony Hinchcliffe. I've seen all of them live. I like, not really a fan of Bert Kreischer per se. I like Mark Norman, all the like current comedians. So those are like the guys that I watch in particular. I'm a big fan of Carlin. I'm a big fan of Bill Cosby, the material, not the person. People like that. Joan Rivers, I like her as well. People like that have passed away, whatever, but legends in comedy. I'm a fan of, or not Bill Cosby, he hasn't passed away, but legends of comedy, I'm a fan of those people as well in terms of their specials. But Shane is like, it's like bro comedy, right? Only like he puts his own twist on it. And so I really like, here's everything he's about. His latest special on Netflix, Beautiful Dogs, is probably my favorite, most recent special that's come out in the past couple years. Very entertaining. I highly encourage that you watch it. So there were mixed reviews. Let me just get this straight right now. The reactions were mostly positive. But the people that weren't positive about his appearance on SNL, kind of the usual suspects, the people that you would guess. So let's take a look at the NPR article. So after Shane Gillis was on SNL and he returned, here is what NPR wrote about him. The title: Shane Gillis struggles in a Saturday Night Live monologue that avoids the obvious. This is by Eric Deggans. Anyone who thought comic Shane Gillis would emerge confident and defiant, hosting Saturday Night Live nearly 5 years after he was fired from the cast amid the backlash over racist and transphobic jokes, had to be a little disappointed with his monologue last night. Gillis didn't spend much time joking about the controversy or the rise in his comedy career that led him to return to the show. Don't look that up, he cracked several seconds after walking on stage to greet the audience. If you don't know who I am, please don't Google that. There wouldn't be any gloating or in-your-face jokes. Instead, Gillis moved on quickly, turning in an uneasy opening monologue punctuated with slight stabs at being naughty. He joked that every little boy is just their mom's gay best friend. Man, that was funny. And offered a bit about how people with Down syndrome, including relatives, are some of the happiest people he knows. Which, this is true. If you really do know Down syndrome, like, this is true. We used to go to a restaurant when I was little called Friendly's. Now, they're no longer in business, but one of the waitresses there had Down syndrome. And I'm not going to lie, she used to hit on my dad all the time. And my dad had been married for 25 years to my mother. And it was fun. You know, it was all in good fun. She was amazing. Lit up the room every time she would be our server. She was great. And what Shane said about people with Down syndrome, it's true. They light up your day. This guy continues to go on from NPR. As the monologue wore on, Gillis seemed increasingly uncomfortable, even for a comic whose onstage persona is slightly awkward, sort of doofus. More than once, he quipped about that he expected a joke to get a bigger laugh, noting at one point, "This is extremely well lit. I can see everyone not enjoying it." Laughter in the room where SNL broadcasts from sometimes louder to viewers at home than to the performers on stage is noted there. He said, in some ways, it was an ingenious response to the backlash Saturday Night Live faced in bringing him on as a host. Viewers might be aware of the criticism, but didn't spend much time looking over the podcast where he dropped racial slurs, anti-Semitic language, and homophobic/transphobic quips, likely watched his monologue and wondered what the fuss was about. Gillis may be attempting something that's increasingly tough to do in a media world where every podcast and stand-up gig is recorded and uploaded somewhere, talking to his core audience in a way that is more explicit and button-pushing than the comedy he offers for a far more general audience like his Netflix special or Saturday Night Live. This guy goes on to say, "Unfortunately, I spent time listening to some of that podcast material before the SNL episode. This guy's a dick. This guy's a dick. So I felt more cynical watching him joke about how his sister adopted 3 black children and married an Egyptian man. So visiting their house was like getting in the craziest Uber pool you've ever seen. or seeing him reference how he and his family established a coffee shop in the hometown where people with Down syndrome can work. Or the joke that got the biggest laugh, where he imagined his niece with Down syndrome being insulted by a white kid at school, and then a group of 3 black kids come up flying out of nowhere and just start wailing on that cracker. This guy put in parentheses, why exactly would they do that, and why does race matter here? I know, I'm just overthinking, but I felt it was a lazy excuse to give the crowd a joke about slur-slinging white person getting some comeuppance. This guy, his favorite color must be like beige, like just boring. Here's why that joke is funny, is because a white kid is at school and then 3 black kids, obviously, the white kid with Down syndrome in the joke is at school getting bullied by other white kids, and then the 3 black kids who are the brothers of the girl with Down syndrome come in, boom, throwing a slur. Like, it is funny. It's a funny premise. This guy is just boring, and he's obviously mad because somebody like Shane is getting to be more prominent in the media. Something that cancelable comedians that don't pander to their audiences, this doesn't really happen much. Comedians like Shane and most comedians, besides podcasts, besides specials, they don't get a lot of mainstream appeal. You got to be clean or you got to pander to the left. So this is... It's crazy that Shane even got this opportunity, but this guy goes on, and I don't know how this article goes. It's not that long. So this guy keeps on going. He says much of it felt like Gillis' attempt to insulate himself from criticism and avoid any jokes that would revive the backlash. But since he already didn't really explain or explore the controversy swirling around his appearance, it all took on the feel of an opportunity missed or a subject ducked. Again, he said don't look it up. That wasn't the point. He was trying to move past that, but he still made it funny, at least to me. This guy says, my cynicism extended to the other sketches and bits in his show, which often felt like they could have been inspired by the rambling jokes on his podcast, which is not true, actually, because Shane actually said the sketches that him and whatever comedian writer friend he has that writes all his other sketches, they wrote jokes too, but none of their jokes were taken. So this was strictly from SNL. This stuff included a skit where Gillis is the patriarch of a white family visiting a black church in Jamaica, allowing him to use a terrible Jamaican accent for a few jokes, to the game show where he played a white man who pretended not to recognize Martin Luther King Jr. in Oprah because he was afraid to say the wrong name on TV. One of his opponents was a black woman who didn't recognize the Mona Lisa or Michelangelo's statue of David, which stung even worse. This guy goes on to, I'm not even going to give this, I'm Xing out of the article. This is stupid. This guy's a hater. And just because Shane got in a little bit of trouble, is one of the guys that wants cancel culture to prevail and cancel culture to stick. And ultimately what's happening with cancel culture now is, man, you're starting to see that people just don't give a shit. Like, people are done caring about it. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody said something 5 years ago, so what? It's Shane Gillis' job to be a comedian, to make people laugh. And the prime goal of comedians is to push back at something that happens in society, to essentially make fun of society and society's rules, like, and push back against these rules. So I don't know, man. We're like 24 minutes in already. But yeah, to go on. So after this, before this, Shane Gillis blew up even more. There was a rumored $50 million deal, but he did sign a deal with Bud Light, so he's now sponsored by Bud Light. A lot of money, going to be a spokesperson, huge deal. After this SNL appearance, Shane Gillis also signed a deal with Netflix. So you'll remember that I said earlier, he had a stand-up special on Netflix. Additionally, now what he has is a contract for another stand-up special. And also, he has it's a comedy show that he funded himself called Tires. Basically, what he does is works in like an auto shop. The pilot's on YouTube. You can check out the pilot, but it's him, people like Stavros Halkias, Andrew Schultz is in it too, and a couple other comedians. Well, 6 episodes, and he actually just sold it to Netflix. So that's part of his new contract. So now, not only is he having another show, another special on Netflix, another Netflix comedy special, but he also has a show now. It's going to be, they already shot it, filmed it, everything like that. He sold it to Netflix, and so it's going to premiere in May 2024, which is awesome. I cannot wait for that. But ultimately, man, to just get off the subject. I think that, man, this is good for comedy. This is good for the world. I think when you shut people up like what happened to Shane, when you cancel people, I think it's stupid. I think cancel culture is essentially dead now. And I feel like ultimately, man, people in the world are going to benefit from his comedy, and you're just going to have more and more people. Like, when I watched SNL, man, that episode with Shane, when I saw his special, it brightened my mood, made me happy. So you're going to have a happier world, in my opinion. I think this is a win-win. But speaking of happy, something happened on the critically acclaimed show, The View, where the hosts weren't very happy, specifically with Dr. Phil. And so what happened with Dr. Phil was he was on Joe Rogan, and he basically went on a rant about how the lockdowns in schools were not beneficial at all, and they actually really harmed children in America. And this is true, right? He's a I don't know if he's just a TV doctor or if he's a real doctor or if he's actually like a psychologist, whatever. I would assume he is a psychologist, not just a TV doctor, so he does know some things. But he went on The View and voiced his opinion on not only the lockdowns, but what they did to children. And here we go. We're gonna react to that too, because I do think it's worthy of being watched and being talked about. So that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna go through this ad here. So everybody bear with me, cause I just hate when we have to hear the ads. So it's gonna blare out. So bear with me here.
Days full of friend time, work time, meal time, bedtimes, family time.
We got 22 seconds of this.
With Emgality. Emgality taken once a month.
And it's on
can help
foxnews.com, so it's an
prevent
unskippable ad
It can
here.
cut monthly migraine days in half. Don't use if allergic to Emgality. Allergic reactions such as itching, rash, hives, and trouble breathing can occur even days after using.
Apologies for
Common side
anybody
effects
listening in
include
their car.
injections and reactions. Ask your doctor about Emgality today.
All right, here we go.
And then COVID hits 10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these? Away and shuts it down. And by the way,
this is true. By the way, who does that to these kids? It's just stupid. Why would you take away essentially 2 to 3 years of these children's lives, have them in school online, away from all these social groups where they're allowed to grow and learn about humanity as a whole? You took that away. You isolated them. I mean, I have family that were isolated, and in my opinion, it harmed them, man.
when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died.
Bro, Whoopi Goldberg is such a bitch. Yes, okay, the goal was to not have children dying and passing and catching COVID, yes. But Dr. Phil actually makes a really good point. He makes the point that children that had school, I don't know what this is. School was like a safe haven for them, and they now were forced to go back to their, sometimes if they had abusive households, they're forced to go back to their abusers, back to their people in their homes that may have been abusive or in some cases sexually molesting them. And he makes up a good point, and the people at The View kind of just like brushed it off, said screw you, we don't care because we're trying to get you to fit in to our narrative. And so I don't know where this went. Hold on, fellas. Okay, we're gonna continue here. So continuing on, here we go.
More than 60% of sales on Amazon come from independent sellers, like You Simply Seasoned in Ogden, Utah.
I don't know what just happened. But continuing on, like it's stupid. I don't understand why the people in The View are so narrow-minded. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like whatever narrative, whoever, all the higher ups, whatever they do, whatever they tell the people in The View to think and say, that's what they say, and it's very frustrating because Dr. Phil made a good point, I think. I think he made a very good point, but the fact of the matter is they didn't care, and they just continued to buy their own narrative. So let's see. We're gonna go back here.
They were trying to save kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this.
Of course, people died.
People weren't laying around eating bond, but
of course, people died. That's not the point. That's not the point. Kids were some of the most as one of the most protected group. They were the least likely to get COVID and die. But for whatever reason, our government officials chose to take them out of school, and as a result, like Dr. Phil says, potentially harm them, and not only cause things like depression, things like anxiety, things like learning disabilities, but now also you potentially sent them back to these homes where they may have been abused.
Well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the places that they could
This is such a
be
faulty
sick,
logic
because no one
argument
wanted
by
to
Whoopi
believe we had
Goldberg.
an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the
He's
least
right.
vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer.
He is exactly right. They were the safest group. They were the least vulnerable group. But for whatever reason, our government decided to take them out of their environment where they were going to learn, where they were going to grow, and where they were going to be able to learn about the world. And now you have 2 years of your life that have been taken away. So it's very disgusting. It's not something that I'm proud of our government, our system of government. I don't know why they push back against Dr. Phil here. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know why Whoopi Goldberg and the rest of the View are so harsh on his beliefs, and they like sharp disagreement with not even like really thinking about like what the ramifications were for these kids. But once again, these people, it's just another propaganda arm of the government. That's all it is. It is just another propaganda arm of the government. So we're going to continue on here. Here we go.
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
There we go. Look at that. The View audience was clapping after that he said that. And the View audience is mostly left-leaning mothers and grandmothers that are stay-at-home moms, got nothing to do with their day, so they flip on the View and they eat whatever. I'm done. These people, man. I don't know. Dr. Phil definitely caused a stir, though. I'll tell you that much. Shit is crazy. Let me tell you. All right, so Whoopi Goldberg literally said they were trying to save kids' lives. And then Dr. Phil interrupted and he said not school children, which he was right. It's just so crazy. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's like when you put so much power in the hand of government officials, they never do, arguably, most of the time, they don't do good with that power. It's just a constant overreach. They take a little bit, and then, you're comfortable with it. You push back at first, something that Jordan Peterson said. They take a little bit, and then you're at first you're like, no, what are you doing? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. But over time, you become more comfortable, and then they take a little bit. And the same thing, there's pushback at first, but then over time, you're comfortable. They take more. That's what it is, man. It's a constant give and take. And so, who knows? I'm glad people like Dr. Phil are speaking out about this, because this is an issue, man. And it's not being talked about by a lot of traditional media. You see this more in like the online media, the up-and-coming independent media. They talk about there's a loneliness epidemic in children, and this is true. But traditional media, for whatever reason, don't cover it. And if they do, some like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, they shit on people in Gen Z and say, oh, these people, they're always on their phones. Well, but like, who put the phones in our faces? You know what I mean? Who put the phones in our hands? It wasn't us. We couldn't buy those phones. It was people older than us, for whatever reason. So I don't know. But we got one more thing to talk about today. Yes, Tucker Carlson. He survived an assassination attempt. Yes. there was, this is so crazy. I'm a fan of Tucker. I don't like that he went to Russia and he basically made Russia look better than America. I didn't like that. I didn't agree with that. But Tucker Carlson, somebody tried to assassinate him. So here we go. This is from the Economic Times. It says right here, Tucker Carlson in Russia. Failed plot to kill American anchor ahead of Putin interview? ? So here we go. It says right here, American journalist Tucker Carlson was in Moscow earlier in February 2024 for an interview with Vladimir Putin, Russian president. And according to Putin's press secretary, the interview occurred on February 6th. A new report claims that a native Russian has been arrested for the attempted assassination of Tucker Carlson. A Russian native, I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize. Vasiliev Pyotr Alexeyevich, I hope that's right, revealed the plot against Carlson. He said that Ukraine's main doctorate of intelligence offered to pay him $4,000 for the task. Alexeyevich claims that initially he was unaware of the target, but now he knows it was Tucker Carlson. So basically, what this is saying is that, if I'm reading this correctly, Ukraine wanted to pay this guy $4,000 to kill Tucker Carlson, which, I'm sorry, if you're a murderer, this is the difference between Ukraine and the United States. We're gonna put this down, bro. Murderers in the United States, you're gonna kill somebody for so much more. $4,000 to kill arguably the most controversial, I would call Tucker a news anchor, the most controversial news anchor in the world, the most infamous news anchor in the world. $4,000? Are you kidding me? That just shows you like how low Ukraine is on the total, how poor of a country Ukraine is, man. If you're in America, you want me to kill Tucker? I need like $5 million minimum, and even then, like I'm not exactly saying okay. You know what I mean? $4,000 to kill the most infamous news anchor in the world. Crazy. Crazy, man. That's the show. The news cycle has never been boring, never been dull in America, and it will continue to not be dull. We're in an election year, and so whatever happens here on out, I mean, good luck, I guess. Once again, Air Sunglasses, thank you for the shades. I appreciate you. I will be doing a lot more guest interviews. We got those coming. I had a really good guest, but unfortunately he canceled on me today. He's under the weather. But I am very excited. It's going to be it's already been a great 2024. Appreciate the support for the Clacko episode. If you haven't watched it, then go watch the Jimmy Clacko episode. You are guaranteed to laugh till you are blue in the face. But yeah, please subscribe. I probably should have said that earlier. Please subscribe. Anything, a like, a comment for the channel. It's just going to help us continue to grow and push to monetization. We are this close. But appreciate everybody who is listening or watching. And yeah, we'll see you next week.